Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the sessions, the fleet show and the networking break so far. This afternoon, we continue our content-driven program with two thought leadership presentations, one by Nicolas Chorin of Jack by AGC Automotive about how to manage increasing cost and complexity of windshield management, and the other one by Giacomo Carelli, Chairman of Leases and CEO of FCA Bank, on new mobility solutions. At 2:30 p.m. we start our second series of concurrent breakout sessions. This time you will have the choice between the session From Data to Reality with ALD and Vinley, a session about electric mobility and sustainability developments with Geotab, and finally, a best practice fleet and mobility management session with Jarno Pajunen of Nokia and the incumbent fleet and mobility manager of the year. We end this first day with our executive leasing debate, and this at 3:15 p.m. So stay tuned for an exciting afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, we start now with a new keynote that will sparkle your fleet and mobility mind. Our fleet and mobility programs will be based increasingly on electrification and connectivity. That's a huge change, but it comes with some good news too. Namely, that our industry is using innovation in connected and electric mobility to anticipate and exceed the demands of our customers, our societies, and our regulators. In this keynote, called "The Sky is the Limit for Connected E-Mobility," the CEOs of two of the most promising industry players together shed light on how technology will make e-mobility seamless, cheap and efficient. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Neil Cawse, the founder and chief executive officer of Geotab. Geotab is a global leader in IoT analytics and telematics and was ranked the #1 commercial telematics company by ABI Research. My second guest is Thomas Ingenlath. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Polestar, and Polestar is the young and fresh electric performance car brand owned by Volvo and Geely. Gentlemen, welcome to the Fleet Europe Summit 2020. I hope that you are doing well. And Thomas and Neil, both of your companies are advocating innovation, respectively in fleet electrification and in efficiency via connectivity and telematics. What's your unique selling point to fleet managers and their companies, many of whom are perhaps a little bit reluctant and hesitating to invest and innovate in these uncertain times? And I would like to start with Neil.
Right, thank you, Stephen. Really, telematics it's a big word, but at its heart, it really is about the one principle that you cannot manage what you don't measure. And anybody who runs a company needs to know what's going on in order to make good decisions. There's 6 very good reasons why people use telematics in general, but what I will say to you is that telematics does very well in good times and in bad times. In good times, when you're coming products, you're finding new ways to serve customers. And in bad times, when efficiency, cost control, understanding what your business is doing becomes very important. Information is power. And so we urge companies in these difficult times to think outside the box and take the initiative to stay ahead and to solve these difficult problems.
Okay. Coming to Thomas. Thomas, of course, many companies, they are due, of course, to respect some cost obligations, cost control, and perhaps in terms of fleet electrification, that could be a break. How do you see that, and what is the unique selling position of Polestar in there?
Well, Stephen, the question about cost and electric cars, I'm looking forward so much to the time horizon of like 3 to 4 years when it will become so clear and obvious that it's actually the other way around. The electric car will be the good cost alternative, the service that you have to do, the lifespan of the battery, the factor that to have a an ICE car and the money you have to put into that technology to make it apply to the emission standards, all that will become very clear in this time frame of 3 to 4 to 5 years. Today, I can just explain, this is going to happen, and I think it's by now not anymore such a secret. But if you're in fleet management and you have to look into a time horizon around this 3 to 4 years, then it's pretty obvious that the electric car will become the cost attractive alternative. Residual value will turn totally around. Of course, if you invest your money today in a car, then you do it in an electric car, because the residual value obviously will be much more stable with this future technology. So that, in a way, in my world, in our world, is a given. What is the product greatness about what we can offer on top of the electrification? And there are two things. On one hand, great innovation with a car that is incredibly suited for a connected world with the Google Android system in it. We are the first offering that in a car. And on the other hand, something which I would call a conservative element, a car that really is built with the knowledge of how to build a quality, long-lasting piece of engineering. It's really a mastered a car, which for that reason as well will have a really good long-term quality and value.
Okay. Neil, Geotab has at the moment more than 2 million connected vehicles in its portfolio on a global scale. In your view, what is the role of connectivity in securing a seamless, efficient and cheap electric mobility that will establish a new normal that's better than what came before?
Yes. Look, every year, companies are purchasing 16% more telematics, right? So in one sense, we know that telematics is growing. And while we think that telematics is important to anybody who runs a fleet, we think it's vital when you have an electric vehicle. So really, at the beginning, you have to start understanding which of the vehicles in your fleet can practically be moved over to electric vehicles, because there are too many examples of companies going, I'm just going to change those vehicles over there to electric vehicles, and it ends up being a failure. So the very first thing to understand is, what is the range that those vehicles need to cover? What routes are they going? What load are they carrying? Under what temperatures are they carrying those loads? And then use what we call EVSA, which is a report that tells you these are the vehicles in your fleet that are the best ones to move to electric vehicles. These ones leave for now. They're not that practical to be used with EVs. And so we think that the very first step is showing companies, highlighting to them the practical use of electric vehicles. The next step is then operating those electric vehicles. We know that it can take 6 hours to fuel an electric vehicle. So managing that process becomes vital, because you can't have people, it happens at Geotab, where I park my car in the morning and I plug into the charger, and then it sits there the whole day hogging the charger. I need a text message to say, Neil, move your car, get the next car in, plug it in, so we can charge those vehicles. I can make sure the vehicles has enough range for the route that it's scheduled for the day. And so we think that telematics is going to help drive the adoption of electric vehicles. And then when you put electric vehicles in, it's actually going to make it workable for your company. So we think it's very important.
Okay. Thomas, EVs are increasingly attractive in terms of TCO, and you even mentioned that they will even become more attractive in terms of TCO. And we see also more and more European markets that become EV ready. But let's be honest, EV uptake is still quite low, and what there is largely driven by incentives and subsidies. How can EVs become a natural part of the new normal in Europe?
We should put one thing into the equation, and that is, yes, fine, there are this is supported with subsidies, but you can take it from both sides. I mean, either you it's all about sustainability and the CO2 bill, and either you punish ICE cars for their CO2 emissions, or you put subsidies on cars that do not have the CO2 emissions. So I think it's not quite fair to talk about subsidies if you do it the other way, then it would be a punishment onto the ICE cars. So I don't think that you can generally say that that is a negative thing, a subsidy. It just makes a fair price for the mobility, and I think that is what it's about in the light of a world that has to aim for sustainable mobility. And then there's another thing. You should not underestimate as well for fleet to have a product that actually your customers are wanting. Do they want it now 100%? I agree. There are elements where certainly you have to find out where does it make sense to put an electric car into which fleet element, certainly. But I think by now it would be really ignorant to not recognize that for a certain customer, for a certain purpose, the EV is the right answer. And we are not talking here jumping from 0 to 50%. This is taking it in steps. And I think it would be very, very easy to predict that it will very quickly go now from a 1-digit share into a 2-digit share. And I think that's all what we are talking here about, really preparing for that steady development.
Okay, and what is very quick, going from 1 digit to a 2-digit share? Is that 5 years, 10 years?
Oh, no, certainly. I think that will be very much a question of 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
Not longer.
Mm-hmm. Good. Neil, next to your own Geotab solutions, you also have the Geotab Marketplace, an open platform for third-party tech companies to connect and benefit from each other's solutions in a way. Now, many industries are afraid of sharing ideas and best practices with third parties. Why does Geotab think the open ecosystem is vital for the development and innovation in our fleet and mobility industry?
Yeah, I think the world is undergoing a big change in the way business is done, actually. And I was talking to Thomas earlier about how you need to be lean and mean in business and outsource things that are not core. And, the old world, everybody was hyper competitive and everybody had to do everything themselves. I think the new world is around knowing your strengths, outsourcing the best that you possibly can to other people. And so, the big thing with our ecosystem and why we believe so much in the ecosystem is that we understand that telematics is just the cog in a machine, and the machine is your business. And we're feeding data into that machine, and we understand that we're just one of those things that you need in your business to run. So if you need the data in your telematics system to update your Salesforce, or to push your data into SAP, or to integrate with your maintenance systems, this is what companies want. And they want choice. They want to be able to go to a marketplace and select from hundreds of solutions that are going to make their lives better, more efficient, safer. And we really think that even though in some sense this is the anti-lock-in, right? We are putting ourselves in our customers' shoes and we're saying customers want choice, they want standards, and they want to avoid customer lock-in. And we think that companies that agree with this philosophy will be the very, very best partners for all people in the fleet industry.
Okay. Thomas, you are with Polestar, part of, let's say, Geely and Volvo. How do you think about partnerships?
Well, that's a moment for me to be proud about the parents, because I have to say that was one of the great things, how open Volvo and Geely, but especially Volvo, embraced the idea of not insisting of being so ignorant of thinking you can do everything yourself. The best example, again, is Google Android. I mean, it was such a act of liberation to say, come on, why would we be the ones who think we can do the navigation best ourselves, the speech recognition ourselves, to just simply go and search for the best in the industry, the partner who can deliver that, and not be afraid of partnering up and doing that together. And there were so many voices that were warning for the risk and how can you dare to do that. Still 2 years ago when I was in Frankfurt at the motor show, I was like, and the panel, really, people were looking like, how crazy can Volvo and Polestar be in doing that? And I think for the customer experience, it was perfect. It delivers such a great system. We learned how to work together really nicely between this tech giant there in the US and this tiny little company in Sweden. It works in a very, very positive way. So that's the whole idea about Polestar as well, to be open to partnerships, to really team up, be creative, and make that for the customer the best choice by doing so.
Thomas, the scarcity and high cost of parking spaces is a key driver for many corporates to start their transformation from fleet to mobility. But ironically, parking spaces are also a vital pillar for efficient EV driving, or let's say for charging. What can and should be done to remove the hurdle that exists in Europe in terms of EV charging?
Well, it's one of the big things with electrification, the whole myth around charging and what it takes. And funnily enough, the hybrid world gives us well that wrong impression, because people are now a little bit more familiar with driving hybrid, and everybody thinks, that charging is such a crucial thing. You have to do it all the time. With a proper EV, you do not have to charge that quickly again. So you can plan much better. When do you do it within the next 3-4 days, and really make it a fast charging if possible, or really organize it with modern technology where you have a park where very much with a clever network, you can charge quite a lot of cars when you do it in a good rhythm. That we see that people who just simply gain a little experience after a year, you become so much more familiar with what it takes to do charging in a proper way, and it is much less of a problem if you have that experience. One aspect which will become really interesting again in a span of 3 to 4 years is thinking about that the cars that are equipped with the batteries actually become they get another value, because they, on the other side, become a really good help for the electric grid and the whole sustainability journey of the industrial nations, where you have to store energy and give energy in a very buffered way. Electric cars will become an element of that grid, and that maybe for fleet will become as well a resource of earning money, having these cars working for the grid.
Neil, in your opinion, what should fleet customers do that they are not already doing to strengthen a sustainable and connected mobility ecosystem that benefits all corporate stakeholders?
Yeah, so we as a company, and I'm sure Polestar is the same, Thomas, we think about the future. What we don't want to do is just make decisions that are good for us for the next couple of months. We believe in making these long-term decisions. And, Thomas mentioned this before, and it is clearly evident. We know that electric vehicles are not only going to be cheaper, they're not only going to be better for the environment, they're not only going to be more efficient, but they're going to be the right choice for all companies, whether you're a consumer or whether you're a commercial customer in the future. And so what we would urge companies to do generally is, one, use information, base decisions on information and fact. And the way that you do that is by gathering that information. Whether you use a company like Geotab or another telematics company, get the data, make informed decisions, and start the process now in order to electrify your fleet, right? We think that if you start that journey right now, you will be ahead of your competitors. When your shareholders, when your customers are demanding that you show that you are a green company, that you are a responsible company, you will be ahead of your competitors. You will be more organized. You will have solved any of the challenges in your own organization. And so we advise companies to start that process right now, and we think you will be better off in the long run.
Thomas, the same question for you, but focused on the supplier industry.
Well, we can supply with cars that actually convince already today about residual value. We saw that with doing that work with our Polestar 2, with this convincing product and the qualities that it brings, despite all the not existing experience, but that the residual value of this car was judged very high. So I think we can really support de-risking for the fleet companies by really providing this, make just that much easier. Having said that, I know it still will take some guts to do it, but it's like with any decision that you do in a company. If you want to have really the step to the success for the future, it is about taking the right risk at the right time, and I think it is the right time to do so now.
Okay. Final question for both of you. Which pleasant surprise can international corporate fleet managers expect from your company in 2021, so next year? Neil, first to you.
So yeah, I mean, I think the pleasant surprise is how easy it is going to be to start using telematics in your own organization. The OEMs are producing so much cool data out of their vehicles, and it really becomes just hitting a button or logging into a website, and you will now have access to information you wouldn't believe possible, reporting and understanding what's happening in your organization. So, I mean, I think that's the thing that's going to surprise people the most, is how easy the stuff becomes. We know technology is very complicated, it's difficult to implement, and I think you're going to see some exciting things in the next couple of years around simplicity.
Thomas?
It's a surprise for the next years.
Yes.
You were asking for.
Indeed.
I think the surprise will be that the question of electrification will not anymore the pressing thing. It will become the standard, because it is not only about it being a sustainable way of mobility. It is as well the convincing way of how you do propulsion of a vehicle generally.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you for your time.